Captain Marvel is one of Marvel Comics' most aspirational figures and has inspired a passionate fan base. But when a character has been around for this long, there are bound to be some unknown corners of their history, even for longtime fans. It's hard to find a superhero identity that hasn't been held by multiple people at some point. From Batman to Thor, it's just part of the territory when it comes to shaking up the status quo. So it's no surprise that Carol Danvers is far from the first person to bear the mantle of Captain Marvel. The first Captain Marvel was an alien named Mar-Vell, a member of the Kree species who was initially sent to Earth to observe it as a spy, disguising himself as a human scientist named Walter Lawson. He eventually took up the identity of a superhero to protect the very people he'd been sent to observe. But Mar-Vell died in 1982, succumbing to cancer as part of Marvel's first graphic novel. After the death of the first Captain Marvel, the name was passed on to Monica Rambeau, a New Orleans native who developed a variety of powers after being exposed to extra-dimensional energy. Despite having little to do with the original Captain Marvel, she spent some time using the name as a member of the Avengers, even serving as the team's leader at one point. After Monica, the name made its way back to two of Mar-Vell's descendants, a man named Genus Vell and then a woman named Phyla Vell. All the while, Carol Danvers was working in the wings as Miss Marvel, with an origin story that tied her directly to Mar-Vell and his power set. It wasn't until 2012 that she advanced to take the name Captain Marvel for herself, putting her in the company of a rich legacy of heroes. From as far back as the earliest days of Clark Kent, it's been tricky for superheroes to balance personal relationships with their professional responsibilities. Look at Peter Parker, whose life has constantly gone downhill thanks to the balancing act he has to play as Spider-Man. Carol Danvers' situation was even worse. For a period of time, Miss Marvel wasn't so much Carol Danvers' secret identity as it was a completely separate, independent personality. After an encounter with a Kree device called the Psyche Magnetron fused her human DNA with the alien Mar-Vell, she developed superpowers. But at first, she wasn't consciously aware of them. When her powers kicked in, Carol blacked out and Miss Marvel took over. It took some help from the interdimensional being Hecate to get her two identities under control. But whatever it took, it was worth it. It's way easier to be a superhero if you can remember what you did the next day.
Prove you're not a Skrull.
A Skrull cannot do that.
While she was introduced as working on the same Air Force base as Mar-Vell, Miss Marvel's solo series took her away from the military and into the slightly less demanding field of professional writing. She quickly lands a position as an editor under J. Jonah Jameson, the Daily Bugle publisher who's always giving grief to Peter Parker. Carol is brought on by Jameson as an editor of a women's interest magazine, the content of which the two butted heads over. The cigar-chomping Jameson expected fashion tips and housekeeping advice, while Carol wanted to push the publication as a progressive platform for women. The plotline established Carol as a character with an agenda and the confidence to pursue it. Her championing of women's rights reflected the era's ideals of empowerment and liberation. Writer Kelly Sue DeConnick, who introduced Carol as the new Captain Marvel in 2012, said of the debut series, "I'm struck now by how overtly progressive it was, even by today's standards." It took decades for Carol to become a captain, but she's been a superhero since the late 70s, and not always as Miss Marvel either. Binary, Carol's second superhero identity, came about after an encounter with Rogue, a power-sapping member of the X-Men, who temporarily stripped Carol of her Kree powers. She was later subject to experimentation by aliens known as the Brood, the results of which left her able to get back into the superhero action by drawing on the power of a literal star. During this period, she lost her emotional ties to Earth, leaving her free to venture into outer space for new adventures, often as an ally of the X-Men. By the late 90s, she was angling back toward her original skill set, losing her connection to her cosmic binary powers and taking on the alias of Warbird and fighting as a member of the Avengers. But the loss of her binary powers brought Carol to a personal low. At her worst, she developed a drinking habit and became professionally unreliable, with her conduct eventually leading to her suspension from the team. Afterwards, she spent a few years as more of a background character before returning to prominence and her old name, with the second Miss Marvel series in 2006. But as dark as those days were for Carol, becoming an alcoholic and getting kicked off the Avengers is far from the worst thing that's happened to her. Superhero stories can take their characters to some weird places, but one plot turn from Carol's past was so twisted that it nearly ruined her as a character. It all took place in a single issue, 1980's Avengers number 200, only 3 years after Carol had made her debut as Miss Marvel. It's now widely considered to be one of the worst comic books ever written. In the story, the Avengers discover that Miss Marvel has become pregnant under mysterious circumstances. That, in itself, isn't a problem, just ask Carol's friend Spider-Woman. The bizarre part is that the entire 9-month development of her pregnancy takes course over just a few days, resulting in a child who ages at an impossibly fast rate. The baby quickly grows into a man named Marcus, who explains that he was previously trapped in an alternate dimension called Limbo, a world without time in which he was born. He only escaped Limbo by being born again through Miss Marvel. Things turn from bizarre to frightening when Marcus reveals that he actually kidnapped Carol, subjecting her to several weeks' worth of manipulation and mind control, after which he impregnated her with his essence and erased her memory of the event. To call this development creepy is a serious understatement.
That's illegal.
Instead of throwing him into the sun, Carol is written as developing romantic feelings for the interdimensional sex criminal who is also her son, deciding to leave the Avengers to go back to his world with him. Making things even worse, Carol's teammates don't see anything wrong with any of it. As writer and artist Carol Strickland wrote in an essay criticizing the issue, the entire plot is a deadly insult to every woman. Fortunately for Carol's legacy, the bizarre story was effectively retconned the next year by writer Chris Claremont, who previously wrote for the Miss Marvel solo series. Claremont took great pains to fix the mess this story left, making it clear that Carol didn't fall in love with her attacker, but was instead brainwashed. And when she's rescued from Marcus's clutches, she takes the Avengers to task with righteous fury for standing by and doing nothing while she fell into the villain's grasp. It's hard to imagine Netflix's Jessica Jones without Trish Walker, but Trish wasn't the first character intended to fill this supporting role. The original plans for the show included none other than Carol Danvers as Jessica's best friend. Considering Carol's history of intergalactic adventures, her inclusion would have made for quite a different show, or at least a very stripped-down version of Carol. Now that Netflix's Marvel partnership has come to an end, it's probably for the best that Carol stayed on the film side of the equation. After all, Captain Marvel once fought off an entire fleet of spaceships single-handedly, and that's the kind of thing that begs to be seen in a movie. Her powers are big budget. What did Hawkeye ever do that compares to that? Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.